So in my quest to determine my next dedicated track car, two cars have stood out over the last year or so. Out of all the cars I've driven in the sub $50,000 price point, new or used, the Chevrolet Camaro SS 1LE and the BMW E46 M3 have so far spoken to me the most in terms of their driving dynamics, both on the street and of course on the track, mostly because of their classic front engine rear wheel drive dynamics. I've just gelled with these cars in a way that I haven't really in any other sub $50,000 over 300 horsepower rear wheel drive front engine car. So today I'm going to pit these two cars head to head. Obviously we are not on a racetrack, we are on a canyon road, but this is still a pretty good proving grounds for these two cars. If they do well out here, chances are they'll be a blast out on track. So we're currently sitting in a 2020 Camaro SS 1LE. I've driven this car before. The owner, Dan, has only done a few mods to it. He mentioned total cost of mods less than $4,000. So that includes some ZLE Solid subframe bushings, front lower control arms, SPL rear toe links. He recently added this 9 Lives Racing 71-inch wing, Hurst short shifter, and some 19x11 plus 35 Apex SM10 wheels wrapped in 305/3019 Goodyear SuperSportR tires. We've got some stock Ferodo HP1000 pads that he runs on the street. He runs some Hawk DTC 60s on track. A good amount of camber as well, 3.2 up front, 2.4 in the back. Stock suspension with the mag ride dampers. The car's not even lowered. Of course, this is powered by the 6.2 liter LT1 engine. It's a naturally aspirated V8, making 455 horsepower and 455 pound-feet of torque. Heavy car though, at around 3,700 pounds, and its strut front suspension multi-link rear. On paper, it doesn't really have the basic bones that you would think would make an excellent track car, but as I found out at Thunderhill West, when I drove this car for a session, it's actually a very capable and fun to drive car at the limit. The 1LE package though is absolutely critical. It gives you a ton of track focused parts that make this car from the factory very, very capable. That's why Dan had to spend so little on aftermarket parts. That includes a vented satin black hood, front splitter, side skirts, rear spoiler, Brembo 6-piston front brakes, 20-inch wheels. Of course, Dan put on the 19s for the track, and we get MagneRide dampers with uprated springs and sway bars. An ELSD comes standard with a 3.73 final drive, upgraded cooling, a valved exhaust, and these excellent Recaro seats. Significantly heavier than the E46 M3, but it's got quite a bit more power and more tech. So let's use this to set the baseline and then hop into the much older E46 and see which one speaks to me more. This car does have a lot of adjustable drive modes. So we're gonna start out in sport mode, and if you double tap the traction control button, it puts it into ESC competitive mode. You can also go into the vehicle settings and separately configure the engine sound, steering, and suspension between 3 different settings. Sport puts it into the middle for everything. Visibility in this car is abysmal. This shroud for the gauges already blocks so much of my view out front when I have the seat as low as I typically like to sit. You just feel like you're in a tank. The visibility in the back, sides, front, it's all pretty bad. But then you throw it into first gear, put your foot down, and this car just comes alive. It's both planted and lively at the same time. That's the beautiful thing about both this and the E46 with the right mods. It gives you confidence on track and in the canyons, but at the same time, it gives you a lot of adjustability. If you want to drive it like a hooligan, you can. You can turn on auto rev match with these paddle shifters. We have it off right now because the throttle response of this car is already top notch, especially in sport mode. In track, I think it's a little oversensitive, and unfortunately, you can't decouple the throttle response from the drive modes, which is a little bit of a bummer because I would have it in sport all day long. On this road, this car does feel very big. It's so wide, but man, the chassis is excellent. The brake feel, phenomenal, even with the stock pads. The steering for an EPS, lots of feedback, good precision, not overly boosted in sport mode. and not overly quick either. Unlike some BMWs, not the E46, but newer BMWs have this very darty, nervous steering, and these mag ride dampers. So good for stock suspension. Very quick responses over bumps, keeps the chassis nice and flat in the corners. It's just a joy. And of course, this LT1 is a joy as well. The SS1LE also comes with a head-up display with a rev counter, which is so useful on track. You don't have to drop your vision down to the gauges to see where you're at. I can feel this car is a little traction limited with these aggressive SuperSportR tires. But that's the joy of the car. Being front engine, rear wheel drive, you put your foot down and you can go sideways. You will go sideways, but in this car, it's fairly progressive. It's a long wheelbase car with a lot of consistent torque throughout the rev range. No matter where you're at, 3,000 RPM or 6,000 RPM, you have usable torque. And that makes the throttle steerability of this car pretty straightforward. It doesn't catch you off guard. Oh, the front end just feels so planted. You wouldn't believe this thing weighs 3,700 pounds when you dive into a corner. There's just so much front mechanical grip. Of course, these tires are huge. Love that throttle response. It's super easy to heel toe with the pedals. It's just such a good car. I think my only gripe with it is that it feels a little bit big. And of course it's heavy, so it's gonna eat through consumables. Oh, you just can't argue with this powertrain and this transmission. The Tremec T56, tried and true. It feels so good, very mechanical, and with the Hurst short shifter, oh, it's perfect. This is about as close to a 10 out of 10 transmission as I felt. It's easier to use than an S2000 transmission, although it's not quite as mechanical, because it just feels more solid in the way it slots into each gate. There's less ambiguity, less chance of misshifting. So yeah, the engine and transmission, amazing for the price. You can pick these cars up for less than $40,000 nowadays in good condition, and you get so much value for your money, and in a modern car. This is only 6 years old. Of course, you can get a 2017 or 2018 as well from the same generation, pre-facelift, and they have the same engine, same transmission, same excellent MagneRide dampers. All right, we have it in track mode now. Let's see how this feels. Oh yeah, right away the damping is even more aggressive, but it's not harsh. It still handles this bumpy road really well. You feel every bump, but none of it is bouncy or crashy. The chassis rigidity of this Camaro SS1LE feels really excellent. I don't feel any flex at all. The suspension's just doing all the work here. Wow, what a car. Not able to push it as hard as I'd like, but that's really just because this car feels so big and wide. On track, obviously that's not an issue. You can drive this car to your heart's content and never really be concerned with the size of the car. The only downside on track is the visibility, and of course the weight. Although you don't really feel it because this car handles so well with all of its mechanical grip, it does chew through tires and brakes. But the entry price is so low. It's so enticing at $35,000, $40,000. It's so hard to argue with. And of course on the street, you can still do this. The gearing is a little bit long, but you know what? It makes sense for this power band, this torque curve. You don't want to be constantly shifting when you just have torque everywhere. The engine revs to about 6,500 RPM, which is not super high, but the effective power band of the car is basically 4,000 RPM. From 2,500-ish, maybe 3,000 up to the red line, you just have so much torque. This sets the bar really damn high. And with such minimal mods, I think, by the way, the $4,000 or less of mods that I mentioned, that might exclude the wheels and tires. But either way, $7,000 maybe for a fully track-ready SS1LE, that is impressive. So now the question is, compared to a relatively more modified E46 M3, does the SS1LE still hold its own? Or is the older car with more mods the better option? Let's find out. All right, we're now in the 2002 BMW E46 M3, also a car I've driven on the channel before, but only in the canyons, not on the racetrack. Now this car is modified in an even more hardcore way for dedicated track work. As you can see, we got the full halo bucket seat, a stripped interior that's basically an echo chamber to make room for this roll cage, and of course the lighter weight. This is undoubtedly the more hardcore car than that SS1LE, but at the same time, if you take the average price of a stock SS1LE versus E46 today, you're looking at a price difference of about maybe $10,000 to $15,000. Obviously the E46 being cheaper. If you were to put that extra money into mods, you'd basically end up similar to these two cars, a lightly track prepped SS1LE or a significantly more hardcore E46 for, let's say, $50,000 or less all in. So mods on this E46 will be in the video description. It's a big list, but some of the main items to call out: ground control one-way coilovers, camber plates and sway bars, upgraded cooling, aftermarket exhaust with a SuperSprint Section 2, Dinan Section 3. This is originally an SMG car. The owner Sergey swapped in this 5-speed manual. It's got a tune, some lightweight bits on the outside, including a carbon fiber roof, AP Racing CP9668 front big brake kit, stock calipers in the back with some upgraded PFC pads, and we've got some Titan 7 18x9.5-inch wheels with Hankook RS4s, 275 square. So slightly less aggressive tire compound and 30 millimeters narrower at all four corners. Oh, and Sergey added this CAE shifter. This car weighed in at 3,150 pounds without the driver, which is some 200 to 300 pounds lighter than a stock E46, and it makes 295 wheel horsepower. Of course, we're powered by the 3.2 liter naturally aspirated S54 straight six engine, rated at 333 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque at the crank when stock. So this is making a healthy amount more power now, while also being some 500 pounds lighter than that SS1LE. Strut front suspension, multi-link rear, much older car, it feels older. The nice thing though is the visibility is so much better in the E46. Even the A-pillars, much thinner, much taller windshield and side windows. I can see out of this car much, much better, even with this halo seat. But how does it drive? That's the question. Let's find out. Obviously, this is a lot more hardcore, getting in and out of a bucket seat with a 6-point harness. Sergey removed the 3-point. It's a challenge. So if you want to keep your track car somewhat streetable, I guess it just depends on your tolerance level. For me, this is a bit much, but it's all in the name of safety, which makes sense given how much Sergey tracks this car. Oh yeah, this thing's raw. So much sound inside the cabin. Stripped out interior. Oh, right away it's so much lighter feeling. Oh yeah, nice and easy to heel toe. We have it in sport mode, which on the street I don't really like because the throttle response becomes very sensitive, but when you're pushing the car it actually makes a lot of sense. Oh, I love the nimble feeling of this car with all the weight reduction mods. It feels so much more nimble than the SS1LE. The 1LE is a very competent car for the weight, but it does feel big, it does feel heavier than this. track brakes. Oh yeah, the front responds so nicely. I will say though, in terms of the steering, the SS1LE has significantly better on-center feel. This has a bit of a loose vagueness on center, but then when you get it loaded up, it feels quite good. I've always said that about the E46 M3 steering rack. So the SS1LE steering trades blows with this. Better on-center feel, maybe a bit less feedback when you have the tires loaded up. But the steering is a strength in both cars for sure. Such a big improvement over stock, but you know what? I think I might actually prefer the SS1LE's shifter with just a Hurst short shifter upgrade. It's a little bit less taxing. This one, you have to be so intentional with every shift. With this car. Now I do admit, part of it is the choice of road and how it doesn't match the SS1LE's physical dimensions at all. With this car, I feel like it's much narrower, much smaller. I can place it within my lane much easier. On track, obviously that doesn't become such a big issue, but right now I just feel more comfortable in this car because of its much smaller dimensions. Of course, it is a lot lighter as well, so that's another big factor. In these tighter corners, it turns in with more willingness. And it's got plenty of throttle steerability as well. I'm not absolutely sending it, but you can still feel that little bit of slip at the rear when you get aggressive with the throttle. It's so nice. It's balanced in a way that I think the SS1LE, it gets close, but not quite as progressive at the limit. The E46 really has always been one of my favorite cars to drive really, really hard because it's so easy to catch. It's so easy to feel through the steering and through the chassis when the rear is about to step out. And this doesn't have any fancy performance traction management or anything like that. Traction control has been fully disabled with this car, but it's still so confidence inspiring and easy to drive hard. Oh, there's that sensitive throttle response in sport mode. Dislike that. Let me try putting it out of sport mode. Yeah, that's a lot better. You just gotta be a little more intentional with your blips. Control suspension definitely isn't as good as the stock Magna Ride in the SS1LE. There's a little bit more balance, it's a little bit more floaty. Sergey said that he has probably hit the limit of what these dampers are capable of, so that's probably his next upgrade. Credit where credit is due. The SS1LE suspension from the factory gets it right. The body control is just so good. Even though that car is so much heavier, I feel like it's more confidence inspiring when you're mid-corner and you hit a bump. This one has a little bit of extra oscillation. This straight six engine is so enjoyable to rev out. It doesn't have anything like the torque of that LT1, but it's enjoyable in its own way. It's not low on torque, It's just that it still rewards you for winding it out, whereas the SS1LE, really, it's very forgiving. You can have it in the middle of the rev range and still have access to a lot of power. Wow, that's an eye-opening comparison for sure. I've been wanting to do this head-to-head for a long time. The takeaways for me mainly are ergonomically, I think the SS1LE does have some challenges. Not to say the E46 is perfect. For example, I think the clutch feel, the pedal placement itself feels very far away when you have the pedal fully depressed. So I feel like I have to reach to get the pedal all the way in. Not an issue with the Camaro at all. And I prefer the shifter of the Camaro. In some ways, I prefer the steering as well. But visibility is a big factor. SS1LE feels like a tank. This feels just a lot more 90s, early 2000s, which I love. But the main thing comes down to weight. With the amount of weight reduction that Sergey has done, this just has a nimbleness to it where even though it has inferior suspension, I can throw it into corners that much harder and with more confidence. I think with the SS1LE, I'd love to see if I could shave maybe a couple hundred pounds out of it. I don't know if it's possible or what it takes, but if that was possible to get it down to, let's say, 3,500 pounds, it might be a much closer comparison. But as of right now, I think the SS1LE doesn't quite speak to me in the same way that this does. I think the next big test would be getting both cars on track on the same day, in the same conditions. But as of right now, I think the E46 narrowly edges it out for me. So let me know what you think about this comparison, guys. A big shout out to Dan and to Sergey. Which car would you choose for sub $50,000 car plus mods? Which one do you think is better suited for the track? Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.